Today we are playing HANA for Playdate. So the player starts off in this room. On the right of them, there is a door they cannot open or interact with. On the left of them, there is a wall they cannot traverse. And then behind them, there is a door that locked behind them. So obviously in the middle, big lever, interacting with it switches the wall to block off the side that you couldn't progress. Obviously the path is to move leftwards. Next is a room with a gap in the middle that cannot be crossed. Player has a thing on the ground that says blink. They don't get what that means, but it makes you think there's another object that's animating over here. You touch it, and the player teleports to the opposite side of the gap. If you go to the one on the opposite side early on, you'll go to the other side too, and they'll talk about how this is technology that if your suit had, it would be very useful for you to have. You'd be able to get to places you couldn't reach. The next room is a room with a lot that's shown, but very little that there can be done. So on the right side, there's another door like the first room that you can't even get to, let alone probably open. On the left side of the other river, there's a lever like the one you've already used before. So you figure, if I can use that lever, I can probably maybe get to that door. Or something. You know that lever is useful because you've used one like it before. You know that door is something that can be done later, but you need to figure it out first. The next room is a maze. It used to be a second maze of two. There used to be another maze that was in the dark that one had to hold the Playdate screen up at a certain angle in order to see the proper path, but that was removed. If one pays enough attention, which not everyone will, there is a key that just cannot be accessed, but is visible to the player. Maybe you would think there's a way to get into this room from that right side. Maybe there's a hidden door or something. And in the back, finally, the NPC tells the player that they need to go around the edge of this room. Now, this might just seem like the game is telling the player what to do, especially if game literacy is low. It might be just telling you what to do, like go grab this key and move on, do what we say. The game is just an experience. That's not really the case, and someone with higher game literacy will definitely understand that there's a lot more going on in this room than just what you were told to do. There's areas on the left side that you cannot access at all, and then why can't you just go straight across the middle? Why would it make you go through the pain of going all the way around the edge just to get the next key? Also, where does this key go? It's nowhere in this room. This means you need to backtrack, and you need to backtrack without having done everything that this room has to offer. Added this NPC dialogue also to try to remind the player, in case they didn't see it, that there's also a key in this room that they do not have. The camera angle when you enter this room, the second time, definitely shows the key on screen. They come back to this room, nothing new can happen. So you head back to the beginning, you remember, oh, there's that door on the right I couldn't do anything with, but I can walk to if I just press this lever again. The player goes up to the door on the right side, then the key opens the door. This means if they get another key, they can open that door in that other room. The next room has 3 levers in it and 3 walls. The obvious thing is just to touch the first lever and see what happens. Doing so erases the first wall, so it just seems like a win-win. Like, you press the lever, you gain more access, you didn't lose anything. Press the next one, however, swaps walls like the original one, and the player cannot go backward. They have to just keep moving forward and doing this. And then the last one breaks. So they enter this room on the right, and it says blink next to a flashing object. The blink text has only come up once, and it meant that there was going to be some kind of tile that teleports them. When designing this, I wanted to hold their hand for a little bit just to make sure everybody could start playing without feeling like it's too hard, but then slowly ease up so that people would learn to get better, or if they already were better, wouldn't feel like the game was boring them by holding their hand too much. The player is told to press B and they'll move in whatever direction they last moved in. They'll teleport an exact distance as long as there's a free tile 3 tiles away from them. The floor in this room have very distinct tiles with borders so that they can be counted, and the player, almost like a training level in a fighting game, could measure the distance they go. They don't have the lever, but they'll figure out that they can just teleport past this thing. When the player gets back to the original room, they've done everything to the right. There weren't any more doors, there weren't any more keys or any other objects they missed over there. So the rest of the dungeon is things they've already seen. I made it so that the players will go to the left side of the dungeon a second time. They won't really be seeing new things, which will make them assess every object in the graphics and every interaction in a new manner. They now have more pieces to the puzzles that they previously just had to walk past. The player has to try to use the lever, it breaks, and now they have to know that instead of using levers to put walls down, they will be teleporting through walls and across gaps. I made this gap so that most of it can be traversed with the blink boots 3 tile distance. Coming back to this room, the blink boots cannot traverse the water. They can't get over this gap here with this wall. The player's stuck. They know there's a lever on that side of the room, and if they have a decent memory and some game literacy, they will remember that there was a path on the left side in the backmost room they could not get to, and the most astute of players will be making a beeline to the back of this dungeon to go get that. Players will also pick this key up over here. Otherwise, they'll run into another dead end later. The only way to make it out of this room at this point now is to take this path on the left, which they could not earlier. It's now accessible. This is the only way that they have not gone. And now they do see something new. They see a small passage. They are now going around the maze. They can see it on the side just so they'd realize that they are walking around it. They end up in the other side of the room where they've been wanting to get to. They press the lever as they've been trained to do. A path appears in the river and the wall on the other side disappears. Now, one last test I added towards the end of developing the game was this room. This was not originally in the dungeon at all. A lot of rooms were cut out of this dungeon, but this one was added to it very late, just as a final test to make sure the player realized how the blink boots worked. This also uses the levers that they've seen in the past. They'll need to combine both skills to figure it out. So this didn't really do much. It just moved this wall up. Like, it deleted part of the wall, and it deleted itself, so you can't toggle it back and forth. The room is now permanently changed. Knowing how the blink boot works, they can teleport over to the right, get to the next lever now. They know that that only difference between before and now is now they could teleport. If they tried teleporting right away, they would have been taught that's too far of a distance. They go to the next lever. Back where they used to be, there's now a lever. So now they need to traverse that gap again. This is really just trying to hammer home, yet again, what the fixed distance of the blink boot power-up is. Hitting that lever, destroyed it permanently, and now put them in a position where they can now go one more time to a lever that they saw before but could not get to. Pressing that lever will now reveal another lever that's on the top of the screen. There's another lever also on the top of the screen, but they just can't get to it. There's moving water in front of it, and they definitely can't get to the exit on the right side. So it's pretty obvious to go up here. Doing this only changed the room slightly, and paying attention to how it was changed will show them that it just added one bit of ground they can step on here instead of a wall, and it took some of the water away and added a piece of ground over by that lever. Now only the player who fully understands this power will get to this part and get there. If they paid attention and they passed the test, they get this, and now they can make their way out of this room and they've completed the dungeon. I kind of wanted to have a boss fight after this that involved teleporting, but ultimately I decided to save combat and fail states for the second half of the game. That is the end of Dungeon 1, the Water Reactor. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.